I need to tell you something. I slept with someone from work.
Sorry, what?
4 months ago. It's over. I wanted you to hear it from me before someone else did.
The bread basket was still warm. The anniversary candles were still lit. The restaurant Callum had booked 3 weeks in advance, the same one from their first anniversary, because Wren had once said she wanted to go back someday, and he had remembered, the way he always remembered things like that, was still full of people having ordinary evenings. And his wife of 3 years had just confessed an affair between the appetizer and the main course like. She was reading from a script she had rehearsed in the car. Welcome to Breakup Diaries. Today we are telling the story of Callum, a man who sat across from his wife at an anniversary dinner, heard a confession, finished his meal, and spent the next 72 hours taking everything apart. Not because he was calm, because he had already understood by the time the dessert menu arrived that what his wife had just told him was not the whole truth. It was the version she needed him to have before the real version reached him another way. He picked up his wine glass. He took a sip. He set it down. He looked at the bread basket for a moment. Then he looked at his wife. "Okay," he said. "Thank you for telling me." She stared at him. "That's it. You're not going to say anything." "I have a lot of questions," he said, completely level. "But I'd like to finish dinner first." She barely touched her food for the rest of the evening. He cleared his plate. In the car on the way home, he asked one question. Not why, not how long, not who is he asked. "You said before someone else did, who is the someone else?" She looked at the passenger window. He looked at the road. And the pause before she answered told him, in the specific language of a pause that runs 3 seconds too long, everything he needed to know about why she had chosen tonight to tell him. If you're just finding this story, welcome to Breakup Diaries. Last chapter, Callum sat across from his wife at their anniversary dinner and heard a confession that was not what it appeared to be. Today we go into what the confession left out. Because what Wren told him was true. It was just not complete. And the distance between true and complete is where this entire story lives. She had said 4 months. She had said it ended. She had said she wanted him to hear it from her. All of those things were technically accurate in the way that a photograph can be technically accurate and still show you nothing of what happened before or after the shutter closed. What she had not said, it was not 4 months. Callum would find this out from Orla, Declan's wife, who called his mobile the following morning at 8:47 while he was sitting at the kitchen table with a coffee he had not been able to drink. Orla was calm. She had clearly already been through the version of this conversation she needed to have with her own husband and was now having the secondary one. She told Callum that the affair had started 11 months ago, not 4. That it had not ended organically, it had ended because she had confronted Declan 6 weeks earlier and given him an ultimatum. That Wren had known Orla knew for 6 weeks. 6 weeks in which she had continued sleeping beside Callum and cooking dinner, and asking him how his day was, and planning their anniversary reservation. Callum listened to all of this without speaking. When Orla finished, he thanked her. He said he was sorry she was going through this. She said she was sorry too. They hung up. He sat at the kitchen table for a long time. The coffee went cold. He did not notice. She knew Orla knew for 6 weeks. 6 weeks of dinners and good mornings and I love yous. Drop your honest reaction below, because what Callum does with this information is the part of this story nobody saw coming. Subscribe and hit the bell. You need to hear what he does next. Subscribe and hit the bell. What he does next is not what you expect. A methodical person. His friends called it his superpower. Wren had called it his greatest flaw, the way he processed things quietly and completely before he reacted to them, which meant that by the time he reacted, the reaction was not emotional. It was architectural. In the 72 hours after Orla's phone call, he did the following things. He called a solicitor. He moved his direct salary deposit to a new personal account. He took photographs of every shared asset in the apartment, the furniture, the art, the electronics, and emailed them to himself with timestamps. He wrote a 2-page document summarizing the timeline of the affair as told by Wren versus the timeline as confirmed by Orla, with every discrepancy noted. On the second evening, he called his best friend Soren and told him everything. Soren listened without interrupting. When Callum finished, Soren said, "What do you need from me?" Not, "I knew it," not, "What are you going to do?" Just, "What do you need?" "I need you to not tell anyone yet," Callum said. "I'm not ready for that part." "Done." On the third day, Wren asked if he was okay. He said he was processing. She said she understood. She touched his arm when she said it, the specific reaching out gesture of someone who wants credit for being patient while the person they wronged works through the wronging. He looked at her hand on his arm. He did not move away. He just looked at it for a moment. Then he said, "I spoke to Orla." The color left Wren's face. "I think we should talk tonight," he said. "Properly this time." That evening, Wren sat across the kitchen table from Callum for the second difficult conversation in 3 days. This one was different from the anniversary dinner. There was no wine. There was no bread basket. There was no ambient restaurant warmth to soften what was being said. There was just a kitchen table at 10:30 at night and a man who had spoken to Orla and now knew the number 11. She had prepared for a conversation about 4 months. She had not prepared for a conversation about 11. And Callum, who had been methodically preparing for 3 days, had prepared for exactly that. She tried the 4 months version first. She had rehearsed it, Callum could tell by the specific fluency of it, the way she moved through the beats without hesitation. She was sorry. It was a mistake. She had ended it. She had come to him as soon as she could. She wanted them to work through it together. He let her finish. Then he opened the folder on the table. "This is a timeline," he said. "Orla's version, I'd like to go through it with you." Wren looked at the folder. Something shifted in her expression. "You made a document." "I'm a methodical person, you know that." "Callum, when did it start?" She looked at the table. "I told you 4 months." "Orla says 11. He said it without heat, the way you state a fact that requires no performance. "I believe Orla. I think you knew I'd speak to her eventually. I think the 4 months was the version you needed me to have before I did." He closed the folder. "So I'll ask again, when did it start?" The kitchen was completely quiet. Outside, the ordinary sounds of a Denver night: cars, a dog, someone's television. Wren put both hands flat on the table. She looked at him for a long time. And then, and this was the moment Callum would describe to Soren the next morning as the moment he understood who he had been married to, she said, "I was going to lose you either way. I chose the version where I had some control." He looked at her, he nodded slowly. "Thank you," he said. "That's the first honest thing you've said in 11 months. The public exposure came not from Callum and not from Orla. It came from Declan, who made the specific mistake of telling 2 people in their shared social circle that Callum had overreacted to a minor thing, apparently unaware that those 2 people would relay this to Soren within 48 hours, and that Soren would relay it to Callum in under 10 minutes. Callum read Soren's message. Then he read it again. Then he forwarded the entire 2-page document to both of those people with 1 line of accompanying text. "Read this and decide for yourself what was minor." The document was 2 pages. It contained the timeline discrepancy, 4 months versus 11, the confirmed dates Orla had provided, the 6 weeks Wren had known about Orla knowing, and a single paragraph at the end that Callum had written at 2 in the morning on the second night, which read simply, "I am sharing this because I was told the situation was minor. I would like the people in our shared social circle to have accurate information and decide for themselves." He sent it to 4 people. Within 24 hours, through the specific physics of a social group where everyone knows everyone, it had reached 14. Declan called Callum directly. He was not calm. "You had no right to send that to people." "You told mutual friends it was minor," Callum said. "I disagreed." "You're destroying my marriage." "You and my wife did that. I'm just providing context." He hung up. Wren saw the document the same afternoon, forwarded to her by someone who assumed she had already seen it. She called Callum from the bedroom, voice low and tight. "You sent our private business to 14 people." "Declan made it public when he told people it was minor," Callum said. "I just corrected the record." "This is humiliating." He was quiet for a moment. Then, "Yes, I imagine it is." He said it without cruelty, simply, the way you state something true that you have no obligation to soften. Wren had no response to that. The line went quiet, then she hung up. Soren texted that evening. "The group chat is something else right now." Callum sent back a single reply, noted. The friends chose sides in the way that social groups always do, not cleanly, not based entirely on the facts, but based on proximity and history, and who they had known longer and who they found easier to forgive. Callum lost 2 people he had considered close. He gained, unexpectedly, the honest respect of 3 others who called him in the aftermath and said some version of, "I didn't know how to say this before, but we always thought something was off." He filed that information away. He did not act on it yet. He was not done being methodical. The divorce took 8 months. Callum's solicitor said it was one of the more straightforward cases she had handled. He had documented everything thoroughly, and the division of assets was not heavily contested. Wren did not fight the terms. He thought she understood, by the end, that fighting methodical people is exhausting because they have already anticipated the arguments. He moved into a smaller apartment in Capitol Hill. He kept the art. He kept the kitchen table, not out of sentimentality, he told Soren, but because it was a good table and he had picked it out himself before they were married. Soren said that was probably the most Callum thing he had ever said. Callum agreed. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, Orla sent him a message. She and Declan had separated. She wanted him to know, she said, not for any particular reason, just because she thought he might want to. He thanked her. He asked if she was okay. She said she was getting there. He said he was too. They left it there. He went on 1 date in the first year. It was fine. The woman was interesting and he was not ready, and he told her that honestly on the way home, and she said she appreciated the clarity. He thought about Wren saying I chose the version where I had some control and understood in that moment what he had actually been married to. Not a bad person necessarily. A person for whom honesty was always instrumental. For whom truth was a tool used when it served a purpose. He had spent 3 years not seeing it. He spent the next 3 learning to see it sooner. Some things you can only learn by paying full price for them. Before you go, the question this story raises that I genuinely do not have a clean answer to. Was Callum right to send the document? He was lied to, he was managed. The affair was called minor by the man who helped conduct it. He corrected the record. But 14 people received information about his marriage that they did not ask for. Was that justice, or was that revenge dressed up as accuracy? Drop your honest answer below. This comment section is going to run for days. This is Breakup Diaries. See you in the next one.